And thank you. We might just mute everyone if you can, please, Bob. Great. Hello and welcome to New South Wales AFI Education Night for June. This is going to be hopefully, well, already has been a sort of, we've already got 53 people in. We've got about 80 people that have booked tickets. So this is fantastic for an education night. And obviously the Zoom allows us to sort of spread it around to other chapters through the country and New Zealand. And we have got plenty of people from those areas joining us tonight. So I would just like to say thanks to Renzo for coming in to do this. Sonia's going to do the introduction in a second. But because we've got so many people, I haven't done so many people on Zoom before, so this will be interesting. But let's just try and use the chat function for any questions. Renzo's happy to take questions throughout. If it gets too many questions, then we may just wait till the end. But we'll see how we go along. We'll just see how it plays down. So without further ado, I'll introduce, Sonia, our Senior Vice President, and she will introduce Renzo. Thank you. I hope you enjoy the presentation.
Hi, everyone. Just a bit of a background. Renzo has got a company as a principal investigator for a company called All Motor Vehicle Investigations, and he does a whole range of motor vehicle investigations at the moment, and fire is one of them. I think he's going to detail a bit of some of the other investigations that he does. But he started out way back, I think it was 37 years ago, as a mechanic. So he's had a lot of experience with vehicles. He's also a private investigator, so he does factual investigations these days as well. And he's also a deputy captain of the RFS. So he's got a bit of vehicle and fire experience. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Renzo. Go for it, Renzo.
All right. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you to everyone here for having me here today. I feel quite honoured to be presenting to you. I hope what I present is actually of use to all of you, and hope I don't send anybody to sleep. Basically, as Sonia outlined, I kicked off quite differently to probably a lot of investigators, where I started off as a mechanic. Spent 12 years working for a range of manufacturers, at which time I was heavily involved in diagnostics of vehicles. From there, I progressed into my own workshop for about 14 years, spending a lot of time doing product testing for both manufacturers and also for product manufacturers. Spending a lot of time diagnosing faults such as vehicle fires, breakdowns, mechanical failure. I spend a little bit of time now since doing investigation, working with police, where I do mechanical failure for serious motor vehicle accidents. For the insurers, it's quite different what I do aside from the fire investigation. I also conduct mechanical examinations for them for vehicle wear and tear. Also with so many flooded vehicles these days, I also do a lot of work for them in regards to water testing and along those lines. In my downtime as an RFS deputy captain, I attend quite a number of motor vehicle fires. And yeah, basically I'm able to see the other side of what I see when I'm actually investigating, when they're actually on fire, and the failure modes that happen within the fire itself. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the screen to work. Sorry. As outlined, what I'm asked to investigate by most of the my clients, such as insurance companies, is fire, theft. I'm actually into also accident investigations in regards to crash data downloads, mechanical damage, wear and tear, water damage from storms, submerged vehicles and deliberate water damage, criminal negligence and mechanical failure. One of the things that that a lot of investigators, I don't think, get into is when vehicles are damaged by either water or fire. We, as fire investigators, will take samples in regards to looking for accelerants. When there is some severe damage to a vehicle, I think a lot of people would actually think that trying to find the motive for some of those fires. I also use such things as coolant and oil testing, which will show me the mechanical degradation of a vehicle, whether it's had severe wear in different components such as engines, gearboxes. We also do looking for coolants and ethylene glycol in oils, which again is going to give us an indication of what sort of condition the vehicle's in, regardless of whether it's been in a fire and at times underwater. I think quite a lot of us, if we've looked at motor vehicles, have seen this type of scene where vehicles have been completely damaged. On motor vehicles, unlike structural investigations, we're usually looking for an ignition source, whether that be fuel, heat, electrical. With common rail diesels these days, although diesel is not a fuel which will vaporize like petrol, it will combust. And with the modern day common rail vehicles, the diesel is pumped into the injectors, into the injector rails at extremely high pressure. So what tends to happen, there are a lot of hot surfaces within the engine bay, and when fuel is being pumped in at 1,800 bar or 26,000 psi, atomized diesel into the engine bay is quite a cause for concern. Just in this little diagram here, the areas in red are actually inside the engine bay, and they are operating at extremely high pressures. So any sort of faulty workmanship or a failed component is basically the recipe for disaster. Just a diagram there, and within the center of the engine, just I hope you can see the diagram reasonably well, but a lot of those silver pipes are the high pressure areas, and those pipes by most manufacturers are deemed as a one-time use pipe only. Once they've been on the vehicle and tensioned to their specific tensions, if they're loosened off to do any other type of repair, they are meant to be replaced. They are quite expensive, so quite a lot of workshops or people doing their own work will not replace those, and that is quite a cause for concern, because some of the smallest leaks will end up in places that are quite hot. At the rear of the diagram, there's basically a fuel filter which is running at low pressure, but it's very close to items that operate at 400 and 500 degrees, such as your turbos. You've got the exhaust just below that, and in general, if things aren't maintained correctly, it's one of the items that are quite common to catch fire in modern vehicle these days. And the petrol-powered vehicles are also of concern because of the volatility of petrol itself. And with Australian climates, where we're operating vehicles on 40-degree days, where exhaust temperatures are seen at times to be up, especially with the catalytic converters and particulate filters these days that are run within the exhaust system. It only takes a very small leak from a fuel injector or a fuel pump, which will cause ignition within the engine bay or under a vehicle. They don't run as high pressure, but due to fuel vaporizing and atomizing so easy, it's a very high cause for concern within vehicles and the cause of fires. Just another small diagram there. One of the other items within the engine bay on a petrol vehicle, we've got some red lines there that are pointing to the fuel injectors, which are towards the back of the engine. Again, they're only sealed with O-rings. A point of failure within engines as they get older. The center of the engine, they're actually ignition coils, so they'll produce a spark which will ignite any fuel vapor. And at the front of the engine, we have very hot components such as exhaust manifolds and turbochargers. Again, yeah, things that can ignite very easily within an engine. And one of the ignition sources that is quite common to cause engine bay fires and destroy motor vehicles. Under the vehicle, there's a lot of fuel lines, fluid lines, oil lines, in some cases coolant lines that have ethylene glycol in them, or radiator coolant, if I'm not too sure what ethylene glycol is. Any of those are subjected to rocks and rust and everything else, and a lot of them run quite close to the actual exhaust system. They're also another common issue when it comes to vehicle fires. These days, with such a large number of people wanting to take their vehicles off-road and modify them, we're seeing a lot of damage to the underside of motor vehicles, and fuel lines and exhaust systems being bent, and things rubbing and chafing, and leaks. And then, of course, we have motor vehicle fires occurring due to that. Just one of I've got a few little samples of some of the fires that I've had to attend. This one here was due to poor workmanship. This vehicle had been in a workshop and had some cooling system work done on it. It had been parked, and when a vehicle is parked after being driven, the radiator coolant temperature rises, the pressure within the cooling system actually continues to rise, and it actually blew off one of the bypass hoses off the radiator. This car had also been modified, and it had an aftermarket exhaust system on it. The photograph on the right with a red arrow pointing to it, that's the cross pipe on the exhaust. On a standard Subaru, they have a significant heat shield over the top of that exhaust. In this case, the heat shield is not there with the aftermarket exhaust. That bypass hose was blown off once the vehicle had stopped. Radiator coolant, or ethylene glycol, which contains alcohol, was blown onto the hot exhaust, causing the damage that basically you can see in the photo to the left. The issue why I was asked to actually investigate the matter was the insurer wanted recovery. The repairer had said that the hose had actually blown off after the fire, but as we can see, the radiator spout there is clearly affected by fire, and he was asked to basically recount what he had said. We have here a poor workmanship issue, which is a very common occurrence. It seems to be happening a lot in the last few years, where people wanting to fit Anderson plugs to their cars to run accessories such as fridges. This one was quite lucky that the way the Anderson plug was wired up, it did not have a fuse in the circuit. It was ran directly to the positive battery terminal. But the main issue for concern on this one, as you can see, the battery damage, was there was a total disregard for any crimp points, etc., for the way the wiring had been routed. As we can see in here, the positive wire that was run back to the circuit breakers had been cable tied to the battery post and totally arced out, and was just the cause of the fire. But to add sort of more fuel to the fire, so to speak, they'd ran that wire back through the circuit breaker, which re-energized the circuit breaker, and continued that side of the vehicle burning, and the only reason why the vehicle wasn't totally lost to fire was the fact that they were able to disconnect the battery supply to it. This again was another Anderson plug issue that had been wired without any fuse in the system. This vehicle wasn't so lucky, and it was only 2 weeks old. The Anderson plugs have been fitted to it as well through a circuit breaker. Again, the battery side of the circuit breaker had been arced out, leaving the circuit breaker energized. It basically ran through down to the positive battery terminal and causing the fire, involving all the plastics in the engine bay, which ended up destroying the whole vehicle. This one here was a JK motorhome. It was this vehicle was parked at the time of the fire. It was a rather complex one to work out, but thankfully, with witnesses that saw the fire start, the cross on the right-hand photograph was where they said it had started. And with this vehicle had solar, it had dual batteries, it had LPG gas cylinders, all within that area. So that after some sort of careful excavation of all the wiring, it was found that there was some faulty workmanship in the assembly of the motorhome. There was some wiring that went back to the dual battery circuit that was crimped between, looked like some cabinetry, causing the wiring to arc out, causing the fire in this vehicle. Just an example there of what we found in the wiring on the right-hand side, and the next 2 slides. This was an insurance investigation that the insurer thought there may have been some foul play in this vehicle. This was a Ford Focus where the dashboard, as you can see, has been consumed down the centre, pulling the vehicle apart so we could access up underneath the dashboard. That's the heater box itself that's been melted down through the centre, and of course, as heat rises, it involved the inside of the dashboard as well. Going through the debris, it was found that the remains of the fan resistor, which is what controls the fan speed in the vehicle, had malfunctioned and shorted out. The main concern with this is that modern vehicles are supposed to run fuses to prevent this occurring, but the manner in which the wiring had fused continued to allow power through the fan resistor, causing that heat build-up and the damage that you were basically able to see up through that dashboard, and deem the vehicle to be a total loss. Again, you know, with modern vehicles, we're seeing a lot more instances where modules are failing, and things like fan resistors and control motors up underneath dashboards that are malfunctioning, and where manufacturers are supposed to protect circuits, it's not happening, and we're having fires that we wouldn't have had 20 or 30 years ago in more primitive vehicles. This one here was a workmanship issue. This vehicle, prior to the RMS introducing the written off vehicle register and not permitting written off vehicles to be repaired and then re-registered, this vehicle was in a front end accident, and to cut costs, the repairer had repaired the aluminium sump. It was refitted to the vehicle, and there was an extremely bad oil leak. Now, the oil, as the vehicle was being driven with just wind, etc., blowing under the vehicle, it has blown engine oil back onto the catalytic converters, which are predominantly center of the left-hand picture, and it's caused surface ignition of the engine oil and predominantly destroying this vehicle. In this instance, the repairer was held liable for the damage due to incomplete and incorrect repairs. And but yeah, this vehicle was basically a total loss at the end of this. This one here was a heavily modified Nissan 200SX, where it had been modified with a very large turbo, a lot of difference in piping and intercoolers, and due to all the modifications with intercooler piping and the extra accessories that have been fitted into the engine bay, initially there was an oil fire within the left picture, where the red arrow is, where the oil feed to the turbo. It had blown oil onto the exhaust, causing a fire on the right-hand side of the engine bay, which basically ensued across the firewall. And it was a bit of a double whammy where there had been some incomplete repairs. On the right-hand side, there's a battery cable and the circle there where they joined a battery cable with a battery terminal, taped it up and left it floating in the engine bay. This vehicle ended up with fire damage due to an oil fire, and then also a battery cable that ran through the car and burnt oil through the inside of the vehicle. As you can see in the left-hand side there, that cable was routed through inside the car and ended up in the boot, and only the fact that it was disconnected just prior to the fire continuing, that it didn't burn the rest of the vehicle down. Even prestige vehicles seem to have some issues at times. Porsche 997, this one didn't burn to the ground, but caused quite a lot of paint damage, only due to the fact that they were able to disconnect power from it. But up under the right-hand front guard, there are headlight modules that control the xenon headlights at the time that these vehicles were running. It was only due to disconnection that the car was saved. But even again, this vehicle should have had fused power supplies to prevent this happening. But due to the short in the module, we had quite a lot of smoke and the beginning of a fire up inside the guards. And as you can see, there's quite a lot of wiring damage through the vehicle. And these photographs are the actual modules that control that headlight operation. That is, again, with a fused circuit, this type of damage should not occur on a motor vehicle. But as I said, it's one of those things that it's occurred, and it's only out of good luck that the vehicle wasn't totally lost to fire. The prestige market, they're usually quite good at protecting these circuits, but we were not given the opportunity to continue to see why that had occurred, because Porsche themselves took over the investigation with this one to see why the fused circuit didn't initiate to protect that circuit. Great Wall V240. This one was a diesel fuel fire. This vehicle was still under warranty. We were asked to investigate the matter because the vehicle had been completely damaged by fire. On the left, we have a fuel separator, which is fitted as per right photo at the lower part of the engine bay on the right-hand side. One of the hoses that actually, the aluminium hoses that connect to that separator had fractured and emitted diesel fuel all over the exhaust, causing damage to the vehicle itself through the engine bay, which then also encroached into the interior of the vehicle, deeming again the vehicle a loss. With this again, newer vehicles are supposed to have fuel shutoffs that would not permit the vehicle to continue to emit fuel once fuel pressure had been lost. But this one here continued to emit fuel under the exhaust, causing the damage that you see. Cabin fire in a Volkswagen Golf. This vehicle was parked. The owner returned to find the vehicle in this state. The insurer we were requested to investigate this one, as the insurer was concerned that there may have been some foul play. But again, we have another vehicle with a fuse box that has failed to disconnect power from a module. Further investigation into this one, it appeared that an aftermarket manufacturer had installed an alarm unit to the vehicle, and as per photo in the left photo in the caption there, all the wiring had been jammed up under the dash behind the headlight switch, causing a short. But again, although the alarm unit was fused, it created the damage that you could see within these photos. Again, with prestige vehicles, we had a Ferrari that had some sports exhaust fitted to it. We had surface ignition of the rear bumper. The exhaust system had been fitted with insufficient clearance to the polymetric heat shielding that the manufacturer uses. It was being driven on a very hot day with very low airflow, and once the vehicle was only driving at slow speeds, the rear bumper and part of the exhaust system was on fire. And again, this came down to clearances and surface ignition of components that should not have ignited, but again, should have, could have. It's one of those things, the automotive industry, that what shouldn't happen sometimes does, regardless of how much care is taken. Just a photograph of the exhaust after being dissected and inspected. There was actually a hot spot right there, as you can see on the photograph, and that was the ignition point of the fire. This is probably one of the latest inspections that we've been involved in. A few-month-old Mitsubishi Pajero had a number of accessories fitted to it, and due to poor workmanship, this Pajero was destroyed. Now, the aftermarket accessory had been fitted without fusing the power supply. There had been aftermarket battery trays, isolators, and a number of items fitted. That's just below the bonnet, hole in the bonnet, you could see in the first photograph. It's an aftermarket battery tray where wiring had been routed and just predominantly thrown around with total disregard for any type of safety by the looks of it. Once the battery...
Sorry, Renzo, just Craig's asking a silly question, but what's a slow speed in a Ferrari? I think he's being... I can't
even asking the question.
But the other question was from Shane, saying it looks like an electric car. Now, I'm not sure which photo he was talking about, but Shane, do you want to just unmute yourself and say which car were you talking about then?
Well, the back of the Ferrari looked like it had some sort of servo unit on the drive shaft.
Didn't it also have an exhaust pipe?
Yeah, it's an exhaust pipe. Yep.
So it wasn't a hybrid car?
No, it wasn't a hybrid. It was a petrol vehicle.
Okay. All right, thanks.
No problems at all. There's other questions. Sorry, I didn't hear Craig asking a question.
His question was, what's a slow speed in a Ferrari?
It was predominantly in Sydney traffic. If that's probably
there you go.
Before, yeah.
I think he was trying to be a little bit funny, but he's always like that. He asks good questions that are funny. Anyway, moving on.
Sydney traffic was the speed it was going. That would probably answer every question, I think. Once that battery tray was removed, as we can see in the left-hand photo, we've got a wire that has shorted. The positive wire had shorted to ground. An inside view of what we could see while looking to see why this wiring was running is the photo that we have on the right hand side, which it was the melting of the underside of the dashboard. Once it was stripped down, this thing had wiring running to the rear for auxiliary plugs, cigarette lighter plugs, and then the wiring running to the right hand side was for some more accessories. The photograph on the right hand side of this is the wiring itself and the damage caused from the wiring being shorted out to the body. So basically what we had to do was remove the wiring that had been fitted to try and trace back the what accessory had actually caused the problem. Again, that's the wire on the left-hand caption. That's the wire you could see that was poking through the firewall before. The right-hand caption is actually the actual arc bead on the body where that wire had actually shorted out. We had Mitsubishi involved in this, and there should have been a grommet fitted to that hole in the firewall. The quantity of wire that was running through the firewall would not have permitted a grommet. So from what we can see, the person who had conducted the work, and we were told it was a licensed electrician, had removed the grommet to be able to install much more wiring through that hole, and of course causing the issue that we've ended up with. Tracing the wiring through and back, it basically came back to a electric brake controller that had been installed, and the whole reason why we ended up with the fire was, again, that the power supply that had been run to the battery had been run without any fusing or circuit breakers on the circuit, and that's what basically caused the fire within the vehicle. When the wire shorted the ground, it didn't allow a break in the circuit, and it predominantly burnt the vehicle to the ground. That's the brake controller and the wiring that we removed from the vehicle, that we traced back to the circuit. And just as a consolation prize, the caption in the right hand side was some wiring that had been run for some lighting, and they've just basically pushed it through the door rubbers and just creating a pinch point. So if the wire that in the front of the vehicle didn't burn the vehicle down, probably a few more door closes for the rear door, and we may have had a fire at the rear of the car as well. Just highlighting some of the poor workmanship that we're seeing out there when we're seeing these fires. And that completes the slide. Is there any questions on what I've gone through? I thought I'd probably brace through them a little bit quick, but.
Okay. Any questions for Renzo?
Let me just go in and allow everybody to unmute themselves. But
but don't everyone unmute at the same time, please. I do have a question. I mean, I guess the emerging trend is all about batteries, and electric cars, whilst they're small in numbers at the moment, are certainly increasing in numbers. So from your perspective, investigating fires, firstly, have you done an electric car? And secondly, I guess, what do you think the problems that we might see as investigators in this space?
I haven't had to investigate an actual fire in an electric car that's caused significant damage yet, but one of the things that I am seeing is water damage causing issues with electric cars. We've had a fair few small flare-ups in battery units that have had. I actually looked at a Lexus 400 about 4 weeks ago, that the gentleman was complaining about surge. The car would surge from time to time, and other times it wouldn't start. And this had been back to the Lexus dealer a number of times, and so basically, just to be able to, as a thing, it was a hybrid. Once the battery pack fails, the car will predominantly do nothing. It won't start sometimes, and other times it will. So we decided, oh, well, let's have a good look at the battery pack. And the vehicle had a sunroof in it, and the sunroof leaked, and the way the sunroof drains were routed through the vehicle, it ran down the C-pillar of the vehicle and filled the battery pack up with water. So it caused a short internally, and it's thankfully that that circuit was protected and it actually shut the vehicle down. But if the circuit protection didn't work, well, that could have been a totally different story as well.
I mean, we've had the Tesla representatives out give us an education night probably nearly 2 years ago now, and I mean they're saying that their Tesla cars are pretty safe, and I'd have to agree with it. I mean, we certainly haven't seen, from a fire rescue point of view, fires with them, and when you compare the number of fires in Teslas compared to normal cars, obviously the normal cars are out there, but there are less numbers of Tesla cars or electric cars out there to make it sort of a proper comparable event. I guess from your mind, do you see this as going to be a problem? I mean, I see it as they're doing pretty good in terms of safety. I mean, the batteries are pretty good. We haven't seen any dramas at the moment, or even overseas, like in the US and stuff like that. You don't see failure of the battery. What you see is a car accident, and then the battery fails, and then away you go. Do you think that this could be as bad as what they're predicting? But I mean, I don't. But I'd like to get your point.
I'm still quite heavily involved with quite a number of workshops, and I think a lot of the issues we're having, whether mechanical items or battery powered vehicles, is how we control the maintenance on these things. Whether the vehicles will stay with the manufacturer for servicing, etc. Because basically there's no oil changes in these vehicles, so whether people will keep the vehicles regularly maintained to prevent anything going wrong is probably going to be the issue, I think, with electric vehicles. Because if you don't have to change oil, you've got no coolant, and the car drives every time you get to it, then I think it's going to be a point where people say, well, it still drives, so why don't we take it back in? So
Michael, I think one of the bigger risks that presents with electric vehicles is in the fire extinguishment itself, or dealing with them, is the huge voltages that are there, like dual voltages or dual supplies. Yes. And that hangs around, and that makes it quite dangerous to go close to if it's been in an accident.
Yes, and that was experienced in ACT just this weekend. They had a large number of lithium-ion batteries in a scooter warehouse, actually. And they were sort of ringing us saying, how do we deal with this and how do we investigate this? And yeah, the large number of lithium-ion batteries, what they do during the fire and certainly post the fire. In fact, the investigator sent me a photo where he just 2 days later, he's gone into the investigation. Even when he's walked in there, one of the batteries off-gassed and started to vent again. So he had to withdraw and get back out and wait again. It's certainly an emerging risk and an emerging danger. Thanks, Grant. There is some questions we have here. I will go through them. Graham's asked, in your experience, it appears to be more poor workmanship. I'm thinking that is in repairs or as in, I think it's like in the actual maintenance of the vehicle.
Yeah, accessory fitment seems to be a big problem these days. With more DIY, there's a lot of people that will go to King Superstore and buy their dual batteries and then go home and attempt to fit them. I think that seems to be an issue at the moment where people will go, well, I'll look it up on YouTube and I'll do it. And that we're finding a lot of that to be an issue where YouTube said I can, Dr. Google said I can, so I can. And a lot of problems are arising from that. Yes.
Okay. David asks, have you used X-ray technology to assist in your investigation? And if so, where and how did you get access to this technology?
I've never used X-ray technology for Aaron behind me saying he has. Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe Aaron should be giving this his presentation.
Maybe if it's technology, yeah.
Jim always said the local vet.
The local vet, yeah, I've heard about it.
Okay, yeah, it's a good point. The local veterinarian.
Can I just jump in there on the X-ray, which may assist David? I have used X-ray usually when I've got a something great lump of melted thermoplastic. I want to see what's in it. So I've found a non-destructive testing company that will X-ray for me and take it from all angles and give me the X-ray so I can then look at same. It is worthwhile. Sometimes it leads to excavation of the thing being X-rayed for no good, but other times it does come up with electrical faults and arc beads and all that sort of thing. All right.
And just for those that don't know, Bob does heavy vehicle investigations. That's all he does. So he looks at the big trucks and semis, and you don't want to hear his CV. He'll go on all night. So that's Bob. Another question from Craig again. In regards to the Great Wall incident, how are you able to prove the hose had ruptured and sprayed fuel? Did you recover part of that hose?
Yes. The actual part that was broken off, it actually dropped off on the road prior to a thing catching fire, because he stopped and he actually picked it up and gave it to us. So it was quite lucky that we saw that. Yeah.
Oh, good one. Maurice, sorry, go on.
That made it easy for us, thank God. Otherwise, it would have been just a fuel leak, and we would not have been able to prove that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And Maurice asks, what risks have you identified with the fuel return circuit leaks?
Fuel return, as in on diesel?
I'm not sure. Maurice, you want to unmute and just ask the question?
Yeah, diesel fuel return circuits, Michael, yeah.
Okay.
It's just that we find that there are more fires, I'm from Western Australia, by the way. We had more fires involving leaks in diesel fuel return circuits than we do on supply, because the return circuits aren't protected by the engine management system.
Yes, exactly right. Well, in most cases, if you're going to have a leak in the return, it would usually be something that's not secured, or it's been damaged. Because it basically, once it's left the fuel rail and it's heading back to the tank, then yeah, it's that would most likely be either a damaged component or something that hasn't been fitted correctly if it's leaking in most cases.
Great. Another question. Oh yeah, Graham confirms that they're in the repair, sort of the maintenance of the repairs. So that's good. Thanks, Graham. Tim from Tim Cousins, Australia. Hope Melbourne is the lockdown isn't driving you batty, but he has a question. We have an in-house X-ray in our forensic workshop for examining batteries and molten masses. It is useful to determine the best direction to deconstruct the assembly, or to eliminate the item, or to hold the item for a joint inspection at a later date. So there you go. Yeah, he obviously does use it in his, and Tim, if you don't know, does failure analysis as well as fire investigation and stuff like that. So yes. Paul Sweeney's got two questions. I guess unmute Paul and go for it.
Well, very quick. I'd rather than write them out because it's too hard for him to read them. Simple one, just a professional one. Congratulations being an active volunteer firefighter. I appreciate that. And of course, he knows where I come from. But anyway, have you ever had this occasion where you've actually been and put a car fire out, then asked to investigate it?
Good question. I have actually come across cars that I've actually put out and have seen them at the insurance company in their holding yard. So it's been quite funny to come across it when there's so many around. Yeah, but no, I'd probably call that a conflict of interest if I did it. And I'd probably refuse.
I was going to say, is that a conflict of interest?
That's why I thought I'd ask the question. Sorry, my apologies.
But I've come across them though. Yeah.
My second one is, they're talking about electric. I've just, and you're freaking me out now, I've actually just ordered a hybrid RAV4 because my Toyota CHR was stolen. And for your lovely insurance companies, 4 weeks to the day, Forbesy, they paid me cash out 4 weeks after the car was stolen. The assessor didn't come anywhere near me. So I got me 30,000. So hybrid cars with the RAV4s, you're seeing any issues with those?
The only complaint I've heard with the hybrids is that there's been a few with batteries that have failed prematurely of what Toyota have, well, not just Toyota, Mitsubishi have had some issues as well, but just prematurely of the 10-year mark, they sort of say that they should last. Yep. But as in failures, not actual failures or faults that have created any major issues, no.
Okay, thanks. So I won't cancel it. I just got an update. It's a 6 months delay building it, and they were due to build it in Toyota Japan in June, but they've told me now July. So I'll just wait I'll get your number. And I'll just email you just before I pick it up. Thank you, Forbesy. I will now mute.
Oh, well, you shouldn't really talk about your insurance claims when we're recording this, Anyway, we'll forget about that and move on. Thanks, Paul. We've got a question from Tom Withers. In regards to electric vehicles, I consider Tesla as a prestige vehicle. I agree. Overseas and to a lesser extent here, there is an emerging market for budget electric and custom retrofitted electric vehicle. Is this a growing or probable risk area here? Is there regulation that may prevent this? Renzo.
The only risk I can see is how, exactly what you said, is how they regulate the fitment or the retrofitting of vehicles to basically bring them into the electric market. If it's regulated properly, we don't have the Kevin Rudd sort of issue with, like they did with the insulation scam. That I think will be the biggest problem. The automotive industry, I don't think is regulated properly now. The Motor Vehicle Repair Authorised Authority don't protect the people who are licensed as it is. There's so many unlicensed workshops out there that are operating to whatever way they want without any regulation. So I think if we start having electric vehicles being retrofitted here in Australia, I think that could be a concern if we don't have a good regulatory system. Yes.
Okay. Hopefully that answers your question, Thomas. Tim Cousins just got a follow-up statement. Some of the premature battery failures are due to poor cooling, which is a design issue. Some of the early Nissan Leafs were a problem. I haven't heard of it.
The Leaf and the Mevo both had that problem, actually. The Mitsubishi Mevo. Yeah, so, or Mevo, whatever they called it. They both had cooling issues with batteries. Yeah, again, designed from the manufacturer.
I mean, if you want to make any more comment there, Tim, you're happy to unmute and say what you need to say.
The Mitsubishi Mevo also had a control panel issue on them as well, which was not allowing the batteries to charge properly. So right. Mitsubishi honoured them right through 10 years, so they were quite good with that.
Okay. Question from Andrew Cotter. I believe that some of the custom home job electric car conversions or battery repacks may be some of the issues we face in the future, especially as the battery packs age. I guess that's more of a comment than a question.
I agree.
Yep. Good. Question for Shane from Shane. Unmute, Shane. Have a go.
How are you all?
Good.
It's good to see you. With electric cars, I've sort of I forget what I was going to say.
He's muted himself. You've muted yourself by hitting the button. So unmute yourself, Shane. Try again. No, he's still. Nah, he's lost it.
Yeah, okay.
I've lost it.
Oh, there you go. Where's your question? You can't remember?
Look, I've had a few fire investigations where it's actually electric bikes, etc. But with these, and getting back to these fires within cars that have been modified, how does the insurance company say whether they're going to pay out or not?
What I find with insurers is some of the insurers, such as Shannon's, GIO have a few policies, and NRMA have a few policies that they will allow certain modifications as long as they're listed. But as far as people doing them themselves, I think it's a matter of if they can prove negligence in workmanship, they won't pay, or they will pay and then try and recover from the person who was negligent. But when it's a home job, I think it's very hard for the insurer to try and recover, and then it may probably even harder for them to prove. But it's a bit of a cat and mouse game, and a lot of reading your product disclosure statement to see what they will and won't cover in regards to modifications.
Okay, great. Okay, there's no more questions. If anyone wants to have a question from the floor or unmute yourself or a comment or anything? I don't. Yes. Hi, Tim.
Just in relation to the battery packs aging, because we've done a few.
Sorry, man, I can't hear you.
Okay.
Let someone else have a go. I'll put a headset.
Okay. He's going to put a headset on. Any other questions while Tim is doing that or comments? Thank you, David, for your comment there. Very informative presentation. Thank you, David. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Timmy's coming back. How we go?
Just on some of the battery failures that we've had, I don't know how it relates to motor vehicles, but I think there are better protections in the battery packs. I don't know. I haven't done any motor electric vehicle fires, but with the 18650 battery pack fires, we've done quite a few of those, and some of them have been caught on CCTV footage, and they sometimes burst into flames after the charge cycle is finished. So not when they're on charge, when they're warming up and everything's expanding nicely, the energy is getting dumped into it. But when the charge cycle stops and the battery starts to cool, then you get the structural changes within the battery, which then causes a short, and then you get the fizz bang, and it's very rapid. Yeah. You know, 1 or 2 frames of your video thing, and this thing is gone. I saw recently a couple of photos of a bus, and I think I saw that scooter shop firing that was doing the rounds.
Yeah, there's a few of them.
Very quick when it goes off, and you can't do anything about it. You just can't put them out. You just got to let them burn.
Yes.
So, but I don't know how that's going to relate to the electric vehicle when the battery packs age. Because the other thing about it is that the battery, individual cells within the battery age at different rates. And Tesla did a study showing they had some really high-end batteries. They put them through the same environmental chamber at the same time, and the spread in performance over about 300 or 400 charge cycles, it varied considerably. So as the battery packs age, there's going to be a spread in the individual cells, and it only takes one cell to go. So really, that's going to be a problem we face if they take off, knowing why the battery pack failed, because the destruction is pretty profound when they do go. But this is something we will probably have to think about. And I'm just wondering if anyone's got any ideas about how we are going to approach this if we do see the fire in it, because you can't put them out. The energy's just got to dissipate.
Yeah, listen, from my experience, I had this exact situation on Tuesday where the ACT guy had a fire, and it was in a warehouse. It was all scooters. It was all batteries. It took them 2 days to put the fire out, or they put it out, but then they monitored because they wanted to see what was happening. They treated it as a hazmat because they had a lot of hydrofluoric acid, hydrogen cyanide, all that stuff going off in their monitors, and the runoff as well. So they wanted to do that. And then the investigation came in. The investigator rang me and said, you know, what's the PPE? You know, what do we do? And I advised, and he sort of said, yeah, okay. And he went in there with a splash suit, SCBA, and he was in there. And then this is 2 days later, one of the batteries again off-gassed and started to vent again. So 2 days later, you know, you're still getting problems. And from an investigative point of view, you know, he has to stop and come out and start again another day. So very difficult to work out exactly what is right, what is wrong. I've only just approached today our fire safety unit explaining this same situation, and I've actually got to confirm today that a guy from our unit is going to come in and do an education night in October around the battery energy storage system, BESS, and explain all that type of stuff as well. So yes, it's a very emerging risk, not just for firefighters, but for fire investigators for sure. You know, what do we do? How do we maintain our safety? How do we, you know, ensure that these things are actually out? Very, very lot of questions, and unfortunately, there's not many answers. Even over in the US, dealing with these type of incidents, you know, you can have a rule or a policy in place, and then something happens, and it changes that as well. So very dynamic. I don't have the answers. If anyone else wants to comment, go for it, because I don't know everything about it. Some more comments coming here. Yeah, Graham says thank you. Howler says thank you. Great presentation. Thomas, again, if anyone has any good links to resources on the firefighting of electric vehicle fires and mitigating the hazards of electric vehicle fires, e.g. hydrogen fluoride gas, I would be interested if you could share these. And Thomas puts down his email address there. Tim says that, oh yeah, okay, that's a direct message. Yeah, he's getting that job in the ACT, so he's heading up for that. Steve says you would get a lot of false indicators. Yes, obviously. Yeah, a lot of that. Ignition over here, goes over here, a lot of heat over here. Yeah, a lot of false indicators in trying to tell you or trying to, I guess, identify that point of origin. Barry says, same interests as Thomas above, please CC. Oh, Barry gives his email there too. So there's a couple of emails in there in the chat if you want to have a look at them before you head off. Has anyone else got any comments around the batteries? I know we've steered off vehicles, but certainly it's a very pertinent and current emerging sort of trend. Anyone else want to comment? You can unmute yourself. Jeff.
Mick, just for the information of everyone online, the WAFI training session this month will be via WebEx and the AGM. So just be aware there's another flyer coming out.
Yes, those that don't know Jeff. Jeff is president of the Victorian Association of Fire Investigators. They did have a education or a training night coming up due to lockdown. They've had to change that. So he's going to produce a new flyer about that. If you don't know that or you don't know what the details are, certainly you can contact us or contact me, and I can certainly pass that info on his behalf. I think, when is that? It's 16th or something, or 14th of June. It's in a couple of weeks. Is that right?
Stand by, going to the diary. I've got a bit on. Hold on, when are we? It is the 16th, Wednesday. 16th.
Yeah, Wednesday. No worries. So certainly support WAFI if you can. Log in. Zoom or WebEx is a great way of doing it. A couple more comments there from Tim. Yeah, thanks, Tim. All saying excellent. Thank you. Thanks from Tasmania, Dave. We're from Tasmania. That's great. Dave and Dave. Tim, thanks from CFA Victoria. Bruce, thanks all. Thomas, Shane says thanks. And I think that's about it. Listen, I'd like to thank Renzo tonight. Thank you. Motor vehicles are notoriously, from my mind, very difficult to investigate. I get very frustrated with them because I just can't. Sometimes it's just too much damage. I can see the macro sort of indicators there, the big ones, but the little ones I can't seem to find, and I always find them difficult. So what you do must be really good to continue to do them for a long period of time. Thank you very much. We've got a bottle of wine for you when we actually meet. For New South Wales AFI, our next education night will be on our AGM. Now, we're planning to have this in face-to-face with a venue to be confirmed, which will be in the first Thursday of August. We'll have a short AGM meeting, and then we're going to have a couple of case studies, which we're going to yet to confirm. Hopefully, Mark Pellegrino will organise all that being then. So thank you very much. Hope you got something out of it. Again, this is being recorded. We'll put it onto our YouTube channel and share that through our Facebook once Bobby puts it up. Thanks to Bob for setting up again, and Sonia for actually organising this one. Sonia has actually come up with the idea to get Renzo on, so thank you, Sonia. If there's nothing else, thank you again, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for having me. Cheers.
Thanks, Renzo.
Fabulous night. Well done, Forbesy.
Everybody.
Well done. Pretty.
Bye.
Thank you. Very interesting.
Thanks, Tim.
Have a good one, guys. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. See ya.
Later.
Oh, there you are.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ross. Well, we ended up with 65 at the end there. That's brilliant. That's amazing. So we still obviously had, I think initially 87. So we had 65 out of 87, which I think was pretty good. You can stop recording now, Rob.
Yes, it is Stopping now.